Millionaire CEO discovers that the woman caring for his grandmother is pregnant with his child. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. The hum of the private helicopter blades droned above the glittering cityscape, a stark contrast to the storm of worry swirling in Liam Sterling's mind. As the chopper descended onto the rooftop pad of the Sterling City Hospital, a facility built in part by his family's philanthropic foundation, Liam could scarcely believe the news he'd received just hours earlier. His grandmother, Margaret Sterling, the iron-willed matriarch who had raised him after his parents' untimely death, was gravely ill. For most, the hospital's softly lit corridors might have seemed comforting. For Liam, each glowing bulb felt like an interrogation lamp casting light on every regret he'd tried to bury. Clutching his phone in one hand and a folded photograph of his grandmother in the other, Liam hurried down the hallway. His footsteps echoed on polished tiles, the air thick with antiseptic and quiet dread. Memories of childhood flickered in his mind. Late-night board games with Margaret when he couldn't sleep, her unwavering smile at every school recital, her stern business lectures that shaped him into the formidable CEO he had become. A wave of guilt crashed over him for not having visited her sooner. But billion-dollar deals and corporate expansions had demanded his attention, an excuse that now seemed painfully hollow. He reached the nurses' station, where the subdued hum of conversation died down at his arrival. Heads turned. After all, Liam Sterling wasn't just another worried relative. He was the face of Sterling Enterprises, the unstoppable billionaire whose name graced tabloids and business journals alike. A nurse stepped forward timidly. "Mr. Sterling, the doctor will be right with you. Your grandmother is stable, but..." Before she could finish, a new figure emerged, wearing the traditional resident physician's coat. The sight of her almost made Liam drop the photograph in his hand. Sophie Dawson, her hair pinned back to keep it off her face, still framed those same intelligent eyes he remembered so clearly. The tension between them, though masked by the crisp formality of the hospital setting, was as present as the day they'd parted ways months before. He'd never expected to see her again, let alone find her caring for Margaret. "Dr. Dawson," the nurse said, a hint of respect in her tone. "Mr. Sterling is here to see his grandmother." Sophie gave a professional nod. Yes, of course. But there was no hiding the slight tremor in her voice. Mr. Sterling, could you follow me, please?" She led him through quiet hallways and into a private room with soft, sterile lighting. Margaret lay on the bed, hooked up to monitors that beeped in measured rhythmic intervals, yet her strong features shone through, even in repose, the high cheekbones, the silver hair swept neatly back. Liam exhaled, relief battling with the knot in his chest. "Grandmother," he murmured, leaning over to press a kiss against her forehead. She opened her eyes slowly, giving him a tired but affectionate smile. "You finally came?" she whispered, her voice weak, yet carrying the same authority he remembered from childhood. "I knew you would, my boy. Always so busy at that tower of yours." Trying to keep his composure, Liam placed his hand gently over hers. "I'm sorry it took a crisis for me to show up," he said, his voice tight with regret. "Tell me what happened. And please, no more secrets." Margaret's gaze flickered toward Sophie, who stood at the foot of the bed scanning Margaret's vitals. "It was just some chest pains," Margaret explained softly. "But they found a few complications. I'm being transferred to the intensive observation wing soon. They want to run a series of tests." Sophie nodded, her expression measured and calm. "We'll do everything we can to ensure Margaret recovers. We've scheduled advanced cardiac imaging. It's a precaution, but a necessary one." Liam was only partially listening. He was too aware of Sophie's presence, of the unresolved tension that hung between them. He recalled a fleeting moment from months ago, an evening fundraiser at which Sophie had volunteered to provide free checkups for underprivileged families. The gentle way she'd listened to each patient's concerns had floored him. They'd shared a glass of champagne afterward, one conversation had led to another, and he shut the memory out. This was not the time to revisit personal entanglements. His grandmother's health took precedence. Yet as Margaret drifted into a light sleep, the monitors beeping softly, Sophie gestured for Liam to step into the corridor so they could talk without disturbing the patient. The hallway lights cast a sterile glow over Sophie's features. She took a steadying breath. "There's something else you need to know," she said. "Your grandmother asked me to keep it private until you arrived. She didn't want to worry you, but the scans indicate potential kidney issues and her heart condition is more complex than she wanted to admit." Liam felt a surge of panic. "You're telling me she's in more danger than I realize?" "Her condition is serious, but not necessarily hopeless," Sophie clarified, trying to maintain a clinical distance in her tone. "With close monitoring and possibly surgery, she might recover. Still, it's going to be an uphill battle, especially given her age." He closed his eyes briefly. "Fine. Whatever she needs, I'll arrange it. Money, specialists, you name it. I can move her to my private medical facility." Sophie looked away, folding her arms over her chest. "She insisted she stay here under my care. She trusts me, Liam. She said she doesn't want to be paraded around to a private clinic like a prized horse." A hint of a smile touched Sophie's lips. "You know how she can be." Yes, he did. Margaret Sterling was a woman who insisted on independence, no matter her frailty. "All right," he relented, "but I'm not leaving her side. And I want daily updates, Dr. Dawson." Their eyes locked, and in that moment the unspoken past crackled between them. He remembered her lips parted in laughter, the reflection of city lights in her eyes. He also remembered the morning after, her tearful goodbye when life's responsibilities beckoned. It had been a moment of passion they'd both tried to tuck away. Now, in the harsh fluorescent light of a hospital corridor, that memory seemed to loom larger than ever. She turned to go, but stopped short as if summoning courage. "There's more," she said softly, avoiding direct eye contact. Liam, I can't keep this from you any longer, especially now that you're here." He braced himself, pulse pounding with an inexplicable sense of foreboding. "Go on." Her throat tightened. He could see the pulse at her neck beating anxiously. "I'm pregnant," Sophie revealed, voice trembling. "It's your child." Time seemed to slow. The muted chatter of nurses at the station, the beeping machines inside Margaret's room, even the hiss of the ventilation system, all these sounds collapsed into a dull roar in Liam's ears. He swallowed hard, searching her face. "How? Are you certain?" His mind raced. They had only been together that once, or was it twice? So many nights blurred by his incessant travel schedule. The memory, though, was all too vivid. A mistake? A fleeting connection? Or something that would alter both their destinies? Sophie's eyes glistened with tears. She nodded. "The test was conclusive. And the timeline, it matches, Liam. I never planned to tell you like this, but fate has other ideas. Your grandmother got sick, and I didn't know how to hide it anymore. Working in close proximity to her with your name constantly on her lips, it was just a matter of time." 1,000 questions whirled in Liam's mind. How would Margaret react to the news? How could he handle a child when the demands of his billion-dollar empire already consumed every spare minute of his life? And what about the uneasy history between him and Sophie, overshadowed by her personal vow to remain independent, to not rely on his wealth or status? "Sophie," he began, voice strangled with conflicting emotions, "why didn't you call me as soon as you found out?" She stiffened. "Because I'm not someone who needs a man to validate my decisions, and definitely not someone who's going to chase you for money. I was prepared to do this alone. But your grandmother's health forced my hand." Tremors of anger, confusion, and something else, hope, perhaps, rippled through Liam. "This isn't just about money," he said quietly, glancing toward the closed door of Margaret's room. This is about a child, my child, and it's about family, something I've already lost too much of. Emotion welled in Sophie's eyes. For a moment it seemed she might respond, but she pressed her lips together, steeling herself. Your grandmother is strong. I need you to be strong too, for her sake and for our babies. A single tear escaped down her cheek. We can figure out the rest later. He reached out, almost touching her arm before remembering the boundaries now between them. We'll talk more, he said, voice low. I need time to process this, but we'll talk. Right now, let's focus on saving my grandmother. Sophie gave a shaky nod. Agreed. We'll get through the night. Then we'll see where we stand. As she walked away, Liam leaned against the cold wall, the gravity of what he had just learned pressing down on him like an avalanche. He was poised on the precipice of the greatest change of his life, overshadowed by Margaret's precarious condition. Outside the windows, the city lights twinkled with indifference. Liam closed his eyes, letting the hush of the hospital wrap around him. For years, he'd believed no challenge could shake him. After all, he'd taken his family's business from near bankruptcy to unstoppable success. But now, love, life, and loyalty converged, threatening to unearth secrets from his family's past. Secrets that someone else might be eager to keep hidden at any cost. Sophie's footsteps echoed down the hospital corridor, the click of her sensible shoes picking up speed as she hurried to a supply room. Liam followed a short distance behind, still reeling from her revelation. Outside, storm clouds gathered over the city skyline, their darkening shadows seeming to mirror the turmoil in Liam's mind. It was as though the entire world was on the verge of upheaval. Certainly his was. He caught up with her just as she reached a tall metal cabinet, tugging it open to retrieve a sheaf of patient forms. She didn't speak. Her eyes flickered in his direction, then away. The tension was palpable, an invisible wall they both were hesitant to breach. I meant what I said back there, Liam murmured, keeping his voice low so passing nurses wouldn't overhear. I'm not running away from this, I just need time. You dropped a bomb on me, Sophie. My grandmother's health is precarious, and now you tell me I'm going to be a father. Her features softened, if only slightly. I know this is a lot. Trust me. I've had weeks to process it all on my own. Believe me, I never wanted to tell you like this. She exhaled, glancing toward the hallway. Let's handle Margaret first. Priorities, right? He nodded, feeling a surge of relief that she wasn't pressuring him for decisions or answers he couldn't articulate yet. Yes, her, our child. Those are my priorities. They gazed at one another. So much unsaid, so many questions swirling between them. A single overhead light flickered, snapping them out of the moment. Sophie tucked the patient forms against her chest. I'll look in on Margaret now. She had some labs done that I need to review. Mind if I come with you? Liam asked, voice quiet. She hesitated. All right, but let's not overwhelm her. She's still fragile. The two headed back down the corridor and into Margaret's room. The matriarch, who moments ago had been dozing, opened her eyes at their arrival. Though her skin was pale, her gaze was unflinching, and Liam saw the trace of a proud smile. There's my boy, Margaret greeted softly. And my favorite doctor, of course. Sophie gave a professional half-smile but stepped directly to the monitor, scanning Margaret's vitals with a practiced efficiency. I'll adjust a few medications, she murmured, and we'll see how you respond overnight. Margaret seemed oblivious to the emotional tension in the air, or, Liam suspected, she was simply choosing to ignore it. Her gnarled fingers reached for Liam's hand. I'm sorry you had to rush here under such dramatic circumstances, dear. I know you hate hospitals. He squeezed her hand gently. I'm just grateful you're still with us. I thought something terrible might happen before I arrived. A shadow flickered across her expression. These episodes are part of old age, I suppose. But there's a fine line between letting nature take its course and letting other forces decide my fate. She paused, and Liam caught the hesitant glance she threw at Sophie. Other forces? He pressed softly. Grandmother, what are you talking about? Margaret's reply was forestalled by a sudden fit of coughing that left her breathless. Sophie stepped in quickly, adjusting the bed to raise Margaret's head slightly. The older woman caught her breath, blinking away tears. Let's not get into that now, she rasped. I'm tired. Sophie flashed Liam a knowing look, equal parts caution and concern, before she ushered him out of the room to let Margaret rest. In the hallway, the fluorescent lights hummed a steady tune that only seemed to heighten Liam's anxiety. She said something about other forces, Liam whispered. That's not just the rambling of an old woman, is it? Sophie folded her arms. Your grandmother's strongly hinting at something she believes is behind her current state. Whether it's purely medical or something else, I'm not sure. But she's frightened, Liam, and that's not like her at all. A pulse of anger flared in his chest. Who would dare harm her? Everyone respects my grandmother. Even her rivals admire her philanthropic work. I don't know, Sophie admitted. She glanced at her watch. Look, I need to check the lab results. They'll let me know if she was exposed to anything unusual, but that kind of test, poison screening, heavy metals, those are specialized analyses that take time. I was going to run them secretly, just in case. Liam's jaw tightened. You suspected foul play? It was just a precaution, Sophie said quickly. Margaret insisted. She said she'd noticed strange symptoms these last weeks. Dizziness, heart palpitations, vision changes. She even claimed she'd lost track of important documents at home, but no one else had access to her personal files. So she asked me to investigate discreetly. He ran a hand through his hair, struggling to keep his composure. A quiet swirl of guilt rose in him. Had he been so busy growing his empire that he failed to see signs of his grandmother in distress? All right, if she's worried about sabotage, then so am I. Let's confirm whether that's just paranoia or if there's something real behind it. Sophie gave a determined nod. I'll let you know the moment the results come in. Before Liam could say more, his phone buzzed. The screen flashed with a text from Irene, his personal assistant. The board needs you at tomorrow's meeting to finalize the Hong Kong merger. Urgent. He sighed, half tempted to toss the device aside. I can't deal with corporate crises right now. Sophie touched his arm gently. Take care of what you must, Liam. Your grandmother wouldn't want you to neglect your responsibilities. She'd be the first to remind you that the family legacy isn't only about health, it's about the empire you're steering. He nodded, forcing himself to quell the resentment brewing in him. Text me if there's any change at all. Let me know if she wakes up, if the labs come back. Anything. I promise, Sophie said, her brown eyes earnest. Just don't shut me out about the baby, okay? His gaze softened. I won't, he assured her quietly. I give you my word. That evening, Liam slipped away from the hospital, ensuring that a private security detail would stand guard at Margaret's door around the clock. If there was even a remote possibility of foul play, he'd take no chances. He drove himself toward Sterling Tower, a landmark of steel and glass that pierced the city skyline. Usually, stepping into its grand lobby gave him a rush of pride. Tonight, it felt more like a burden. He arrived at his top-floor office, spacious, immaculate, decorated with modern art and floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the glowing metropolis. Irene greeted him with a worried expression, a stack of documents in her arms. She was older than him by about 20 years, a pragmatic woman who had served as the family's executive assistant for more than a decade. You look exhausted, she said, concern etched on her face. How's Mrs. Sterling? He sank into his leather chair, loosening his tie. Stable for now, but there's more going on than we realized. He hesitated, debating how much to confide. She mentioned being sabotaged, or at least hinted at it. Sophie, Dr. Dawson, is running extra tests. Irene's eyes flickered with something like alarm. Sabotage? Truly? We're not sure yet. Irene... He hesitated, thinking of the vow he'd just made to Sophie. The pregnancy was a private matter for now. Just keep your eyes open. If you notice anything unusual, financial discrepancies, unusual phone calls, staff acting out of character, inform me immediately. She nodded briskly, setting the documents on his desk. Of course, Mr. Sterling. He glanced at the top folder, brimming with financial records and contract negotiations for the Hong Kong merger, his largest business deal to date. But the lines of text swam on the page, dwarfed by the personal dilemmas swirling in his mind. I'll handle these negotiations, Irene, but my head's not in it right now. Understood. The board can wait, or at least they can accommodate your schedule, she replied gently. By the way, I received a phone call from your private investigator earlier. He wants to update you on the details surrounding your parents' death. That last statement snapped him to attention. My parents' death? Why now? She cleared her throat. He's continuing to piece together old leads. It seems he's found something new, or so he said. He wouldn't elaborate over the phone. A cold shiver rippled across Liam's shoulders. I see. All right. Schedule a meeting with him first thing tomorrow, before I go back to the hospital. He stared at the city lights beyond the window, the memory of that snowy night so many years ago creeping to the surface, his parents' car accident that left him orphaned and Margaret his only guardian. Something about the timing of all these events, a revived investigation into his parents' demise, Margaret's cryptic talk of sabotage, and Sophie's startling pregnancy, unsettled him. As if fate was no longer content to let old ghosts lie dormant. Mr. Sterling, are you okay? Irene asked softly. He turned back to face her. I'm fine, he lied. Just a lot on my plate. For now, let's finalize tomorrow's schedule, but keep my mother's old study locked, and if anyone tries to access it, besides you or me, sound the alarm. Yes, sir, Irene said, the question in her eyes unspoken but clear. What on earth is happening? Outside, lightning flashed in the distance, painting the office walls with jagged streaks of white. In his pocket, Liam's phone vibrated with an incoming message. He pulled it out, half expecting an update on Margaret. Instead, the number was unknown, and the text read, Let sleeping dogs lie, or you'll regret stirring the past. His heart pounded. Who would send such a threat? Another surge of protective fury ignited in him, directed at whoever might endanger the woman who had raised him, and now the mother of his child. He crushed the phone in his fist, glaring at the cityscape through the expansive windows. One thing was certain, he was no longer just a high-powered CEO orchestrating corporate mergers. He was a grandson, a soon-to-be father, and possibly the next target in a web of deceptions that threatened to crush everything he held dear. Sunlight filtered weakly through the tinted windows of Liam's car as he returned to the hospital early the next morning. Rain still clung to the streets, reflecting gray clouds overhead. The text message he'd received last night, "Let sleeping dogs lie or you'll regret stirring the past," echoed in his mind. His phone remained silent since then, as though the sender had vanished into the shadows. But he knew better. Whoever issued that warning was watching closely, waiting for him to make a move. He parked in a private spot near the emergency entrance, stepping out into a swirl of damp air. A pair of security guards, men he'd hired overnight, trailed him discreetly, scanning the area for threats. Liam usually traveled light. Now, circumstances had forced him to accept a new reality, vigilance at every turn. The corridor to Margaret's room was busier than before, with nurses changing shifts and doctors on their morning rounds. Sophie was already there, studying a fresh set of lab reports under the fluorescent lights. She wore the same white coat from the previous day, dark circles smudging her eyes. Seeing him, she offered a small, tired smile. "How is she?" Liam asked, glancing at his grandmother, who appeared to be dozing peacefully. Monitors beeped in calm, steady intervals, but he still noticed tension etched into the lines on Margaret's face. "We adjusted her medication overnight," Sophie said, holding the lab sheets. "Her enzymes and cardiac markers improved marginally, which is a good sign. But there's something odd. She has trace amounts of a compound not typically present in medication. The toxicology is still pending, but I suspect it could be some kind of slow-acting poison." Liam's blood ran cold. He struggled to maintain composure, inhaling sharply. "Poison? You mean someone's deliberately trying to harm her?" Sophie pressed her lips into a thin line, nodding. "It seems likely. There's no reason for that compound to be in her bloodstream. Of course, we need confirmation from the specialized toxicology panel, but the initial test is highly suspicious." An unwelcome fury gripped him. First the cryptic threat on his phone, now this. A collision of fear and anger churned in his stomach. Has she mentioned anything else? Any specific suspicion about who's behind it? "Not yet," Sophie murmured. "She's exhausted. I thought it best not to bombard her with questions. Once she's stable enough, we can talk again." But the mere existence of this substance— She looked down, voice thick with concern. "We have to be careful, Liam." He reached out, resting a hand on her shoulder. "I won't let anything happen to you or to her or to—" He trailed off, glancing around to ensure no one overheard. "Our child." Before Sophie could reply, a soft voice came from the bed. Margaret had awakened, her eyes opening slowly. "Liam? Sophie? Come closer." She motioned feebly with a hand, the thin blanket rustling around her. As they approached, she took a shaky breath. "I feel somewhat better. But I overheard a bit of what you were saying. Don't hold back. Let me know the truth." The older woman's eyes, though tired, gleamed with determination. She had built an empire and navigated life's hardships with her head held high. Liam knew she'd never forgive them for sugarcoating reality. Sophie lowered her voice. "Margaret, the tests indicate you've been exposed to a compound that doesn't match your prescribed medications." Margaret gave a faint nod, as though the news confirmed her suspicions. "I thought as much. My memory's been playing tricks on me, not in the typical sense of old age. Rather, it felt induced. I'd find things moved around in my office, documents missing and then reappearing in odd places. When I'd question the staff, they acted like I was imagining it. But I know better." Liam's gaze darkened. "Any idea who's behind it, grandmother?" She closed her eyes, as though summoning courage from within. "I suspect it relates to your parents' death all those years ago. I always felt it wasn't an accident, despite what the investigators concluded. But my attempts to reopen the case were blocked. Then just recently, I began digging again, hiring new experts. Word must have reached certain people. I think they want to stop me from uncovering the truth." Liam's breath caught. It matched exactly what Irene had told him, that his private investigator had new findings about the fatal crash that took his parents' lives. "You're saying their deaths were orchestrated?" "It's a strong possibility," Margaret whispered. "And now I'm paying the price for getting too close to something very big and very old." A swirl of fear seized Sophie's features. "We need to alert the authorities," she said quietly. "The hospital's security isn't prepared for a sabotage scenario involving a high-profile patient." Margaret's voice remained calm. "Yes, we'll do what must be done. But be careful whom you trust. Wealth and power can bend laws, can infiltrate even the most secure systems. This might run deeper than any of us guess." Liam's phone buzzed, diverting his attention. He glanced at the screen. It was a message from Irene, reminding him that his private investigator awaited him at Sterling Tower. The timing was almost eerie. "Grandmother, rest. I have a meeting that might shed more light on all this. Sophie, can you stay close?" "Of course," Sophie said. I'll keep an eye on her and the toxicology results. In the meantime, I've already informed the head nurse not to allow anyone in who isn't specifically approved by me or your security team." Margaret opened her eyes to look at both of them. "Thank you, dears. I'm in good hands. Just be sure to protect yourselves." Once again, Liam found himself navigating the highways back to Sterling Tower, mind racing. He pictured the day he first lost his parents. The frantic phone call, the wail of sirens, Margaret's face as she gathered him into her arms. He was so young, so convinced it was all just a freak accident. Now, as an adult, he realized accidents could be manufactured. Arriving at the office, he bypassed the usual executive suite and took a private elevator to a secured conference room. A tall, wiry man in a dark blazer stood by the window, flipping through a file. He turned as Liam entered. "Mr. Sterling," the investigator greeted. His name was Anton Pierce, a former detective who carried himself with a mixture of caution and quiet confidence. "I've been compiling fresh evidence about your parents' accident." Without preamble, Liam closed the door and gestured for Anton to continue. "Tell me everything." Anton spread out photos on a glossy mahogany table. Images of the twisted wreckage, old coroner's reports, and location sketches. Initially, the official story concluded your father lost control on an icy road. But I compared the car's mechanical inspection with new data from the manufacturer. The brake lines were tampered with, partially cut. Not enough to cause immediate failure, but enough to severely limit your father's control on a sharp turn. An investigation back then should have caught it, but somebody suppressed it. Liam sucked in a breath, anger blazing in his eyes. So they found an easy scapegoat in the weather. Why didn't the original investigators notice the tampering? "There's evidence the official logs were doctored," Anton continued, pointing to differences in the file codes. "And your father's financial records showed he was on the verge of exposing some wrongdoing in a high-stakes deal just weeks before the crash. The people threatened by that must have had enough power to bury it." Liam's gaze turned steely. "Any suspects?" Anton hesitated. "Several. Your father was negotiating with a consortium rumored to be laundering money through offshore accounts. He refused to sign off on the final arrangement. One name that appears multiple times is Harold Finch, a business rival who vanished from the scene not long after the accident. Another is an older scion from a different family empire, last name Rochford. But these are just leads, not conclusive proof." A muscle in Liam's jaw ticked. Harold Finch. Rochford. Possibly others. You think they could still be operating in the shadows, determined to keep their secrets? Anton spread his hands. "I'd bet on it. If your grandmother started asking the wrong questions, they might have moved to shut her up." Rage coiled tight in Liam's chest. They almost succeeded. Margaret is in the hospital on the brink of... He cut himself short, not wanting to reveal the suspected poisoning or her fragile state. "I need more than speculation, Anton. I need direct evidence, enough to bring them down. If these people had anything to do with my parents' murder, they won't escape justice." Anton nodded, gathering the photos neatly. "I'll keep digging, but watch your back. If they removed your parents and now they're going after Margaret, anyone close to you is at risk." Liam exhaled sharply, recalling the baby growing inside Sophie. The very thought that any harm could befall Sophie or their unborn child ignited a protective fire in him. "I appreciate the warning. Keep me informed. Money, resources, whatever you need, you'll get it." As he left the secured room, Liam noticed Irene waiting in the hallway, a stack of documents balanced on her arm. She caught the look on his face, hard, determined, overshadowed by worry. "Mr. Sterling, I've rechecked the finances for the last quarter. Some items stand out. There are anomalies in a few subsidiary accounts, huge sums quietly funneled to shell companies. None of it authorized by you or your grandmother. It's reminiscent of the pattern that your father was investigating before." She trailed off, evidently not wanting to dredge up painful memories. But Liam gave a grim nod. "I see. Compile a thorough report, Irene. We might have found the money trail linking to whoever orchestrated all this, and if it leads to the same old names, Finch or Rochford or whoever, they're going to regret underestimating us." Irene took a breath, glancing at the security guards stationed discreetly by the elevator. "And what about your grandmother's condition?" A flurry of conflicting emotions welled up. "Still delicate, but she's fighting. I'm making sure no one else gets near her or that hospital without my permission." He paused, letting the gravity of everything settle over him. "Irene, be careful. We're unearthing secrets that powerful people want to remain buried." She stood a little straighter. "I've worked with the Sterling family for over a decade. You saved my job and my dignity when times were tough. I'll do whatever it takes to protect you and your grandmother." "Thank you," Liam said quietly, the sincerity in his tone unmistakable. She left with determined steps, and Liam headed to his private office. The day's sunlight had shifted, stretching long shadows across the polished floors. In the hush of that high-rise sanctuary, he caught a glimpse of himself in the glass reflection. No longer the confident playboy billionaire, but a man grappling with the legacy of betrayal and, for the first time, the weight of impending fatherhood. His phone remained ominously silent, the last text message a menacing reminder. "Let sleeping dogs lie." It was too late. The dogs had been stirred, and he had no intention of letting them slip back into the shadows. By late afternoon, the clouds above Sterling Tower had thinned to reveal a warm stripe of sunlight. Despite the scenic view from his office, Liam's mind seethed with the storm of new information. The sabotage swirling around Margaret, the possibility that his parents were murdered, and the knowledge that he was soon to be a father. These revelations, each significant on its own, formed a crashing wave of responsibility he could barely keep from sweeping him under. He left instructions for Irene to continue digging through any suspicious corporate transactions, then slipped into the private elevator leading to the underground parking level. His security detail trailed him silently, men in crisp suits whose stoic demeanor contrasted with the tension gnawing at Liam's core. He had one more meeting to attend before returning to the hospital, a vital talk with the Sterling Enterprises board to finalize the Hong Kong merger. Ordinarily, such a massive deal would be all-consuming, but right now it felt like an afterthought compared to the threat on his family's life. In the plush back seat of his sedan, he closed his eyes, bracing himself for the upcoming confrontation with the board. For the last month, they'd pushed relentlessly for him to seal this international expansion. Despite the shadowy sabotage threatening his grandmother's life and the secrets from his parents' past, he also needed to keep Sterling Enterprises afloat. Perhaps doing so would preserve the resources he'd require to fight whoever was behind this deadly plot. When the sedan arrived at the sleek glass skyscraper that housed the Sterling boardroom, the wind had picked up. Liam stepped out, ignoring the biting breeze. 2 security guards flanked him, escorting him to a private entrance. Inside, the interior gleamed with modern luxury. Marble floors, abstract art, and discreet receptions set behind tinted glass walls. Irene had sent word ahead, so the board was ready for him. A circle of well-dressed executives awaited around a polished oak conference table. They rose briefly when he entered. At the table's head was Colton Thorne, one of the more senior board members, a silver-haired man with razor-sharp eyes. Liam knew Thorne prided himself on rational thinking and unwavering commitment to Sterling Enterprises' profit margins, but Thorne also wielded considerable influence, a fact that Liam couldn't dismiss. "Liam," Thorne began, offering a curt nod of greeting, "we heard your grandmother was unwell, our best wishes, of course, but we do need clarity on the merger." Liam took a seat, posture rigid. "She's stable, thank you. As for the Hong Kong merger, I've reviewed the final terms. I'm prepared to sign, assuming the last-minute cost analysis shows no hidden pitfalls. A faint flicker in Thorne's eyes. We appreciate your diligence, but time is running short. The partner conglomerate will only hold their offer open for another 72 hours. If we delay, they may turn to a competitor. Even as Thorne spoke, Liam felt a buzzing in his pocket. He fished out his phone. Sophie's name flashed on the screen. Instantly, anxiety spiked. Any call from her about Margaret could be urgent. Meeting or no meeting, he couldn't ignore it. "Excuse me," he said, standing abruptly. "I need a moment." He stepped out into a vacant hallway, pressing the phone to his ear. "Sophie, is everything all right?" Her voice was hushed. "I'm okay, but Margaret had a bit of a scare. Elevated heart rate, shortness of breath. We managed it, but it was close. She's resting now. Liam, I'm worried. This could happen again, especially if the toxicology confirms she's being poisoned." His hand tightened around the phone. "I'm on my way as soon as this meeting's over." "Take your time," Sophie said. "She's stable for the moment. But just so you know, a man showed up asking to see Margaret, someone not on her approved visitor list. Hospital security turned him away, but he seemed oddly persistent." A surge of anger ignited in Liam's chest. "Description?" "Medium build, dark suit, maybe late 50s. He claimed to be an old friend of Margaret's, but her real friends would have known to contact me or you first." Sophie paused. "He left before security could stop him for more questions." "Thank you for telling me," Liam said, heart pounding. "I'll be there soon. Keep an eye on her and on yourself." He ended the call, returning to the conference room with renewed urgency. Thorne eyed him with impatience. "Shall we continue?" "Yes," Liam said, resisting the urge to bolt out the door. "Let's finalize the details, but be swift." The next half hour passed in a blur of spreadsheets and contract language. Liam nodded or interjected sparingly, his thoughts on Margaret. At last, the board agreed on the final sign-off, subject to his signature. After the meeting concluded, Thorne approached, voice dropping to a murmur. "I know your grandmother's health has overshadowed matters," Thorne said, "but the board has concerns. We've heard rumors about re-examining your parents' accident, talk of sabotage. Let me be clear. If the company's name gets dragged into a scandal, it could undermine everything we've built. We trust you to handle your private affairs discreetly." Liam fixed Thorne with a level stare. "My parents' legacy is entwined with Sterling Enterprises. Their deaths may have been more than an accident. It's not simply a private affair. This could be a threat to our entire family." Thorne's expression flickered, something akin to worry passing over his features, but it vanished swiftly. "I see. Just remember your obligations, Liam. The firm must remain stable." Before Liam could respond, Thorne gave a polite nod and strode away. The undercurrent of that conversation left an uneasy taste. Thorne spoke as though corporate stability outweighed truth or justice. Liam recognized that approach. Some in high positions abhorred any scandal that might tarnish profits. Still, Thorne wasn't exactly a suspect. He'd been with the company for decades and generally proven loyal to Margaret. But in a crisis like this, even longtime allies might slip into self-preservation mode. He wasted no more time. Exiting the building, he climbed back into the waiting sedan. "Hospital," he told the driver tersely. The car glided through traffic, weaving between lanes. Every mile felt like an eternity until they pulled up in front of Sterling City Hospital, the evening sun dipping toward the horizon. The minute Liam stepped inside, he sensed heightened security. His men stood at strategic points, their faces grim. He hurried to Margaret's floor, heart pounding with each footstep. A nurse recognized him and gestured for him to wait, but he brushed past politely. The door to Margaret's room was ajar. Sophie was inside, checking vitals on the monitors. Margaret's breathing seemed more strained now. Sophie turned, relief written on her features. "Liam, she's stable, but we had a scare earlier, like I said." The strangest thing is, her sedation levels dropped unexpectedly after she was given an IV drip. If the staff hadn't caught it in time, she could have gone into cardiac distress. Liam clenched his fists. You think it was tampering? I'm trying not to jump to conclusions, but it's possible. I'm reviewing logs of who accessed her medications and IV lines. She placed a gentle hand on Margaret's shoulder. Your grandmother is strong, but if there's an active threat inside these walls... Margaret stirred. Her eyelids fluttered and she managed a weak smile for Liam. My unstoppable grandson, she whispered. Come to check on your old Gran? He brushed hair back from her forehead. Gran, you'll be fine. We'll fix this. Whoever's targeting you, us, won't get away with it. She looked up at him, eyes misted with determination. I know, dear. I just worry about you, about the entire family. We can't keep living in half-truths. People like whoever orchestrated your parents' death thrive in the shadows. Sophie adjusted Margaret's oxygen mask gently. Rest for now, please. Margaret nodded, fatigue pulling her under. As her eyes closed, Liam turned to Sophie, voice low. You mentioned a man came earlier, claiming to be an old friend? She nodded. Security asked him to leave when he couldn't provide ID. The nurse who saw him said he looked agitated. Liam's phone buzzed. Expecting more ominous news, he pulled it out quickly. Instead, it was a call from an unlisted number. Warily, he accepted. Hello? A distorted voice came over the line, barely audible. Stop your investigation, Mr. Sterling. The old woman's condition will worsen if you persist. That's a promise. The call ended abruptly, leaving Liam's blood pounding in his ears. Anger flared hot in his chest. In this moment, fear was overshadowed by pure outrage. Sophie caught his expression and read it instantly. That was another threat, wasn't it? He exhaled, forcing calm. Yes, they threatened her again. I swear, Sophie, they'll regret it. I'll do whatever it takes to protect her, and you. She swallowed hard, briefly placing a hand on her abdomen, a subconscious gesture reminding them both of the new life growing within her. You're not in this alone, she whispered. I'll stand by you. He gazed at her, the unspoken weight of fatherhood, and the dangers that now threatened them all, crashing down like a tidal wave. They'd only had a single moment that sparked this child, but life had a way of forging unbreakable bonds under adversity. Thank you, he said softly, brushing his fingertips across her cheek. Right now, our best course is to stay vigilant and gather evidence until we can strike back. The next time they reach out, or the next time we find a clue, we'll be ready. She nodded, eyes fierce with resolve. Together, they looked down at Margaret. The night air outside the hospital window turned deeper with every passing minute, symbolic of the darkness trying to claim them. Yet in that quiet hospital room, with the faint beep of monitors and the silent presence of two hearts newly bound, Liam felt a spark of determination. He would stand firm, for his grandmother, for Sophie, and for the child who deserved a future free from fear. Night settled over Sterling City Hospital, streetlights casting orange halos on the dark pavement outside. Inside Margaret's room, lamps glowed softly, illuminating a fragile peace. Liam sat by his grandmother's bedside, arms crossed over his chest, eyes unfocused. Despite the storms brewing in his life, he found temporary solace in her rhythmic breathing. Every so often her eyelids fluttered, as though even in rest she was battling ghosts from the past. Sophie had just stepped out to consult with another specialist on the toxicology results. Meanwhile, two of Liam's personal guards stood vigilant in the hallway. It was as if the entire floor had become a fortress, albeit a fortress cloaked in the quiet hush of a hospital ward. Each time footsteps approached, Liam tensed, wondering if this would be another intruder disguised as a visitor, another threat come to pressure him into abandoning his search for truth. Margaret stirred. Her voice was but a rasp of its former authority. "Liam," she whispered. "Come closer." He moved to sit on the edge of the bed, gently taking her hand in his. Even after everything, Margaret's presence radiated a sense of command, as if she were still the regal matriarch presiding over her philanthropic galas. "I'm here," he said softly. I've been thinking about the night your parents died," she managed, her words halting. They were on their way to deliver evidence, something that would have exposed too many powerful people. Only I never knew exactly who. Now I'm convinced the same circle is behind everything happening to me. Liam felt a chill. "Grandmother, I've uncovered enough to know there was break-line tampering, a conspiracy, one that may stretch across multiple families or corporate entities. I promise you, I won't let them get away with it." The older woman's eyes glistened under the low light. "That's what worries me, dear boy. They've tried to kill me to silence what little I know. But you, your resources, your connections, they'll see you as even more of a threat. Be careful." He nodded, heart heavy. "I will." She squeezed his hand, though she barely had the strength. "And watch over Sophie. That girl's a treasure. She's risked a lot to help me. Don't let her face this alone." Emotions swirled inside him. Relief that Margaret approved of Sophie, mingled with trepidation over the secret of Sophie's pregnancy. He was sure Margaret suspected, but for now he left that topic unspoken. "I promise," he murmured. Footsteps in the hallway caught his attention. The door opened, revealing Sophie. She looked tired but determined. In her hand, she clutched a folder of lab reports. Margaret, reading the tension in Sophie's face, closed her eyes, feigning sleep to give them privacy. Sophie motioned for Liam to follow her into a small consultation nook across the hall. There, under harsh fluorescent lights, she spread out the papers. "Preliminary toxicology is back," she began in a hushed voice. "The substance in Margaret's bloodstream is a derivative of aconite, commonly called wolfsbane. In large doses, it causes almost immediate cardiac failure, but in microdoses, it can weaken the heart over time, creating irregular arrhythmias. If it's administered slowly, doctors might confuse it with advanced heart disease. By the time we realize what's happening, it's often too late." Liam's jaw tightened. So, someone's been poisoning her little by little. The meltdown she had earlier could have been a near-fatal escalation. Sophie nodded, her expression grim. "Yes, we're lucky we caught it. The good news is that she hasn't had further doses recently, and I'm taking measures to detoxify her system. But the slightest slip could be catastrophic. I'm instituting a closed-loop medication system for her. Only designated nurses can access her IVs, and every bag must be logged under camera surveillance." He let out a breath. The anger coiled in his chest, threatening to burst. "We'll find out who orchestrated this. I have my security combing through the hospital staff rosters. If anyone suspicious got themselves transferred to this ward, we'll know." She closed the folder gently. "I'm also going to talk to the hospital administration about stepping up official security. I know you've hired your own men, but an internal threat might bypass them more easily than we think. I want eyes on every corridor, every supply closet. Margaret's life depends on it." Liam looked at Sophie. In the sterile light, she seemed simultaneously fragile and unshakable, the fatigue painting shadows under her eyes. Her hand drifted momentarily to her abdomen, an unconscious gesture, but his heart clenched at the reminder. She bore his child. "Thank you," he said, "for everything. For risking your career to run unauthorized toxicology tests, for caring about her so deeply." A faint blush touched Sophie's cheeks. "It's the right thing to do. Margaret's been good to me. And it's not just about her, you know. It's about you too, Liam. I can't stand the idea of losing any part of this, of us, before we even figure out what that means." He swallowed. "We'll figure it out," he promised, voice thick with emotion. Their eyes locked, a silent acknowledgement of the bond forming between them. The vow was unspoken. They would stand together, no matter what threats came their way. Later that evening, hospital security officials joined Liam's men in a private administrative office. Sophie stayed behind to monitor Margaret's vitals, leaving Liam to coordinate the plan for her protection. A short, stocky man in a uniform introduced himself as Captain Ruiz, the chief of hospital security. Ruiz set down a blueprint of the hospital floor. "We've never dealt with a potential poisoning inside these walls on this scale, Mr. Sterling. It suggests either an infiltrator posing as staff or someone bribed from the inside. To counter this, we'll restrict access to Ms. Sterling's corridor. A single check-in point, armed personnel, plus cameras in the supply and medication rooms." Liam studied the blueprint, nodding. "We also need to anticipate unexpected angles. Someone might slip in as a visitor to another patient, then access Margaret's IV lines, double-check visitor IDs, and cross-reference them with personal data. If anything's out of place, you detain them." Ruiz scribbled notes. "Understood. I'll reassign some of my most trusted officers to this shift. We'll coordinate with your men to ensure no blind spots remain." One of Liam's security leads, a tall ex-military man named Jensen, spoke next. "We should also track electronic keycard logs. Hospitals rely on digital badges to access certain areas. If we see anomalies, like staffers entering medication storage at odd hours, we investigate immediately." Ruiz agreed, tapping a pen against the blueprint. "Let's finalize these protocols by midnight. We can't afford any delays." The group dispersed after hashing out the details, leaving Liam momentarily alone by a row of vending machines. He stared at his reflection in the glass front of a machine that displayed bottled drinks and snacks. Was this truly his life now? Standing in a hospital corridor, waging war against an invisible assassin, all while grappling with fatherhood he never anticipated? His phone buzzed. A text from Irene. "Need to show you something regarding Finch and Rochford. Urgent. Where can we meet?" He exhaled, then quickly typed, "Hospital. Bring whatever you have." With that, he pocketed the phone and returned to Margaret's room. Sophie sat by the bed, updating charts. She gave him a questioning look, as though sensing the tension emanating from him. He explained about Irene's message, and she nodded understandingly. Within half an hour, Irene appeared in a subdued business suit, hair slightly disheveled from the brisk walk. She quietly greeted Sophie before turning to Liam. "I have records that link Finch and Rochford to a series of foreign accounts. Most suspicious is that these accounts show ties to an offshore entity called Stonehaven Investments." "That name again," Liam murmured. "Anton Pierce mentioned it might be part of the consortium that my father was investigating before his death. Did you find anything connecting it directly to your parents' final days?" Irene gave a grave nod, handing him a tablet. On it, a series of transactions scrolled past. "Look here. A large sum was wired to an account belonging to a small automotive repair shop near where the accident took place. Timing was suspicious. 2 weeks before your parents' car crashed, and it came from Stonehaven Investments. That shop apparently shut down right after your parents died." Liam's heart pounded. "So that might be where the brake line tampering happened." "It's very likely," Irene confirmed. "Finch and Rochford, at least on paper, have some ownership in Stonehaven. They might have laundered money through it to pay off complicit parties." Sophie, listening closely, looked horrified. "They've covered their tracks for years." Irene flipped to another screen. "But here's a more recent twist. Margaret was investing in a small investigative firm overseas. It seems she found some leads about Stonehaven's present-day dealings. Maybe her inquiries were noticed. That could have sparked the attempt on her life. They realized she was closing in." The air in the room felt electric. Liam stared at the data, recalling the phone threats, the cryptic warnings, the sabotage at the hospital. Everything was converging around Stonehaven, Finch, and Rochford. They formed the toxic triad behind the murder of his parents, and now Margaret's poisoning. His pulse hammered with raw fury. He closed the tablet, meeting Irene's gaze. "We need conclusive evidence. If we go public prematurely, they'll bury us with legalities. Or worse, they'll strike again." Irene drew a steady breath. What's our next move, then? I'll talk to Anton Pierce first thing tomorrow, Liam said, his jaw set. We'll gather enough proof to bury Stonehaven and its puppet masters. If Finch and Rochford still wield the kind of power they once did, we need an airtight case. Then I'll use every bit of my influence, media, legal teams, law enforcement, to blow this open. Sophie placed a comforting hand on his arm. Just be mindful of the danger, Liam. They've already shown they'll stoop to murder. He placed his hand over hers gently. I know, but I won't rest until they face justice. Not after what they did to my parents and to my grandmother. Irene gave them a moment, then cleared her throat softly. I'll get back to the office, see if I can unearth more references to Stonehaven. You'll keep me posted about any new threats? Of course, Liam answered. She nodded and slipped out. Once again, the hospital's hush enveloped the room. Machines beeped softly, monitoring Margaret's tenuous health. Sophie stepped closer, her expression torn between concern and resolve. You're really taking the fight to them, she said quietly. Does that mean we're about to head straight into the lion's den? His gaze flickered to the door, where a pair of security guards hovered, and then to Margaret. Finally, it landed on Sophie's face. We are, he admitted, but together we can handle it. He trailed off, glancing at her stomach, remembering the child within. She understood. I won't do anything reckless, she promised. My place is here, keeping your grandmother alive and stable. That alone is risky enough, apparently. But I'm not running from this situation. Liam's heart stirred with emotion. In that moment, he realized how strongly he admired her, not merely for her medical skill, but for her bravery under fire. Thank you, he whispered, voice thick with gratitude, for not backing down. She smiled softly. You're welcome. He sank into the chair beside Margaret's bed, exhaustion tugging at him. Sophie perched on the edge of a small couch near the window. A sense of camaraderie flowed between them. Yes, they were about to battle a hidden enemy with deep pockets and no scruples. Yes, the path ahead was riddled with danger. But there, in that quiet room, they took solace in each other's presence. In the hallway, footsteps passed by. Nurses changing shifts, orderlies pushing carts. The hospital hummed with the subdued life that continued around them, unaware of the web of deception that threatened to claim the woman in the bed, or of the unborn child whose future now hung in the balance. Liam's phone screen glowed with new messages, but he ignored it. Instead, he gently reached for Margaret's hand, steeling himself for the battle to come. The following morning dawned with restless clouds overhead, a faint drizzle spattering against the windows of Sterling City Hospital. Liam woke from a fitful doze in Margaret's room, cramped on a small sofa. Despite the professional courtesy extended by hospital staff, offering him a more comfortable space, he'd refused to leave her side. The watery light of dawn revealed Sophie, yawning and stretching in a chair across from him. They shared a weary but determined look, reminded of the silent promise they had made to protect Margaret at any cost. Margaret, still asleep, seemed to be resting better than before. Sophie had closely monitored her vitals all night, adjusting medications and ensuring no one slipped into the room unsupervised. At some point around 3 a.m., Margaret's heart rate stabilized enough to give Sophie cautious optimism. Standing up slowly, Liam rolled his stiff shoulders, then stepped out into the hallway for a moment of fresh air. Outside the door, 2 of his security detail sat on a bench, eyes alert. A nurse walked by, offering him a polite smile. Although the corridor was bright and clean, the tension in the air was palpable. Everyone sensed the heightened security for the Sterling matriarch. Liam's phone buzzed, a text from Anton Pierce, the private investigator. Anton, got new intel on Finch and Rochford. Need to meet ASAP. Possible location of Stonehaven boss. Liam typed back swiftly, I'll be there. Give me an hour. He exhaled, re-entering Margaret's room to find Sophie checking the chart. Her stethoscope hung around her neck, and the presence of dark circles under her eyes hinted at minimal sleep. "I'm stepping out to see Anton," he said quietly. "He has a lead on Finch and Rochford. With luck, we'll confirm who's behind this. And then we make our move." Sophie glanced at Margaret, still peacefully unaware. "I'll stay here," she replied. "If her vitals remain stable, we might be able to reduce her sedation later. Maybe she can provide more details about what she discovered regarding Stonehaven, anything that helps build our case." He nodded, pausing just long enough to graze his fingertips across Sophie's hand. It was a fleeting moment of closeness, yet it felt vital. "Stay safe," he said. "You too." The drizzle had intensified by the time Liam arrived at the place Anton had instructed. A discreet cafe on the outskirts of downtown, far from Sterling Tower's gleaming skyline. The cafe itself was modest, dimly lit, linoleum floors, and the warm scent of roasted coffee beans. Liam recognized Anton's silhouette in a corner booth, partially hidden by a half-drawn blind. Sliding into the seat opposite the investigator, Liam removed his rain-spattered jacket. "You have news?" Anton nodded, leaning forward. "I spent all night cross-referencing Stonehaven's shell companies. An old tax haven in the Caribbean got flagged. Through that, I found a real estate portfolio in Hong Kong, and guess whose names appear in tangential legal documents? Finch and Rochford." Liam's voice was taut, though not surprised. "Exactly." Anton tapped a tablet resting on the table. "They're directors in a labyrinth of offshore trusts. Also, this is crucial. I found hints they may be working with a man known only by an alias, Clarkson. He's rumored to be the boss, orchestrating Stonehaven's daily operations." Liam frowned. "Clarkson? Not a name I've heard in my father's old files." Anton shrugged. "He may be a later addition. Probably took over Stonehaven's practical matters after your parents' murder forced Finch and Rochford to go underground for a while. If Margaret's inquiries got too close, Clarkson might be the one giving orders now." Reaching for his coffee cup, Liam felt a surge of adrenaline. "So how do we find this Clarkson?" The investigator flipped through digital documents. "He's slippery, but I did manage to track a property recently leased under an alias matching Clarkson's known pattern. Multiple short-term leases, all paid in cash, no ID required. It's an abandoned office building in a semi-industrial zone near the water." A hush fell between them, broken only by the low hum of the cafe's background music. Liam inhaled slowly. "Then that's where we start. If Clarkson is there, or if we find evidence linking him to Finch and Rochford, we can finally blow this open." Anton's gaze hardened. "It's risky. Men like Clarkson don't operate alone, and they aren't afraid to use violence. If you go there, do it with caution. Bring your security." A flicker of apprehension sparked inside Liam, tempered by determination. "I'm not strolling in blindly, but I can't sit back while Margaret's life hangs on the line, or while these scum keep my parents' murder buried under red tape." Anton rested his elbows on the table. "We could try the authorities, but we'd need a rock-solid tip to get them involved. Right now, everything we have remains circumstantial unless we see Clarkson in the act or find direct proof on site." Liam pressed his lips together, recalling the covert threats he'd received on his phone. "All right, give me the address. I'll gather my team. We'll scope it out first, see if there's enough probable cause to alert law enforcement." After scribbling the location on a slip of paper, Anton slid it across. "Just promise me you won't do anything to jeopardize your safety. People like Clarkson, Finch, Rochford, they've shown they're willing to kill." Liam's stomach twisted as he thought of Sophie, Margaret, and the unborn baby. The stakes had never been higher. "I promise. We'll be careful." As soon as Liam emerged from the cafe, phone in hand, he called Jensen, his head of personal security, and arranged a discreet reconnaissance mission. They would meet in an hour at a secure facility for weapons check and briefing. Rain pelted his car as he drove, the city's neon signs blurred in the downpour. His heart thudded with each passing moment, the final puzzle pieces clicking into place. The suspicion that a trifecta of influential men orchestrated his parents' demise and now targeted Margaret was almost a certainty. Breaking them would require precision, a single misstep, and the conspirators would vanish like ghosts. Back at Sterling Tower, he parked in a restricted area of the underground garage. Jensen was already there, leaning against a black SUV, two other men flanking him. Each wore discreet tactical gear under their civilian jackets. At their feet sat several locked cases, presumably containing non-lethal weapons, communications tech, and protective vests. Liam exited his vehicle. "Thanks for assembling on short notice," he said, shaking Jensen's hand. "We have a location, an abandoned office near the waterfront. We suspect a top Stonehaven operative may be on site." Jensen's brow furrowed. "Understood, sir. Any idea what kind of personnel we're up against?" "Potentially armed, possibly ex-military or hired muscle. This Clarkson figure must have resources. We're going in quietly if possible. Gather intel, see if he's really there or if we can locate incriminating documents." The security leader nodded. "I recommend we carry sidearms with suppressors. Non-lethal options, too. We'll do a silent sweep and keep the vehicles parked at a distance so we don't tip them off." Liam's jaw was tight. "Agreed. Let's gear up." Inside a secure storage room, Liam slipped on a lightweight vest under his tailored suit jacket, an odd contrast to his usual polished look. Jensen handed him a compact pistol with a suppressor, which Liam accepted with a grim sense of resolve. Though he detested violence, circumstances demanded preparation. As they moved to leave, Jensen cleared his throat. "Sir, if I may, your grandmother's in a critical state. Perhaps it's wise for you to remain off-site and direct from a distance. We can do the sweep." Liam shook his head firmly. "I appreciate your concern, but I need to see whatever we find with my own eyes." "This is personal, Jensen. That doesn't mean I'll be reckless. I'll follow your instructions on the ground, but I'm going." Jensen hesitated, then relented with a curt nod. "Understood." They drove in a tight convoy, two black SUVs, tinted windows, weaving through city streets as dusk approached once more. The industrial district by the waterfront was mostly deserted after hours, warehouses and shuttered offices lining the roads. Occasional street lamps flickered, illuminating puddles that reflected the skeletal outlines of abandoned cranes. Finally, they parked a few blocks away from the target building. Through the windshield, Liam saw a looming structure of concrete and glass, many windows broken. A single rusted sign read Harborside Consulting in faded letters. It looked like a place time had forgotten. No obvious guards patrolled outside. No lights glowed in the windows. Yet tension vibrated through Liam's body, a primal awareness that danger was near. Jensen signaled for silence. The security team spoke only in whispers, distributing earpieces and checking each other's gear. "Stay close," Jensen murmured to Liam. "We'll approach from the north entrance, see if the door's accessible without making noise." They advanced, boots crunching on wet gravel, hearts pounding in unison. The building's metallic door had a hefty padlock, but Jensen's men swiftly worked on it. Liam stood watch, scanning the darkness. He could practically feel unseen eyes on them, though the night remained eerily quiet. With a soft click, the padlock gave way. One of the men eased the door open. A musty smell wafted out, damp concrete and stale air. The corridor beyond was in disrepair, walls peeled, debris scattered. Liam moved cautiously behind Jensen, every sense on high alert. In the faint beam of a flashlight, they navigated broken furniture and rusted equipment. A half-busted sign pointed to office suites leading down a hallway. They paused at each closed door, listening for movement. Silence. Then, a sudden whisper came over the earpiece. "We have movement on the east side. Footsteps on a metal stairwell." Liam's pulse quickened. Jensen gestured for half the team to circle around. They would attempt to flank whoever was there. Liam crept forward, hugging the wall. Each heartbeat pounded like a drum in his ears. Shattered glass crunched softly underfoot. The team froze. Far down the corridor, a faint glow flickered, then disappeared, someone turning a flashlight off. Another set of steps, heavier now, retreated deeper into the building. They'd spooked someone. Jensen signaled, "Move in." As they edged closer, Liam prayed for a swift encounter, or better yet, a quick capture. But a clang reverberated like a door slamming in the distance. By the time they reached the stairwell, all they found was a half-open door leading to an alley. No sign of Clarkson or any occupant. Frustration simmered in Liam's chest. They slipped away. Jensen pressed his lips together. They knew we were coming. Let's see if they left anything behind. The men fanned out in search formation, scanning each dusty room. Broken desks, torn file boxes, nothing useful, until Liam stumbled upon a small, locked closet near what appeared to be a makeshift office. Inside the door's dusty window, he spotted metal filing cabinets. He motioned for a pry bar. With a grunt, one of the men forced the door open. Rows of papers and folders cluttered the cabinets. Someone had tried to shred some of them, but the machine jammed. Liam's heart soared as he sifted through the scraps. References to Stonehaven, currency exchange slips, dates, names, proof. He pulled out his phone, snapping pictures. This was the smoking gun. Even if Clarkson escaped, these documents could tie Finch and Rochford and whoever else directly to Stonehaven's operations. Jensen gave a low whistle. "We need to bag this up, sir. Quick, before anyone returns." Liam nodded, adrenaline surging. Finally, something tangible. Something that could destroy the men who shattered his family. His voice trembled with the weight of impending justice. "Yes, let's gather everything. We're getting Margaret out of danger, and my parents might finally rest in peace." Yet a small voice in the back of his mind warned that Stonehaven wouldn't accept this blow lightly. No doubt, they would retaliate. The real battle was just beginning. Liam and his security team didn't linger in that abandoned office building for long. Once they gathered the documents, hastily packing them into black plastic bins and snapping quick photographs, they slipped out into the drizzling rain, nerves frayed. Though they hadn't encountered any direct confrontation besides that fleeting hint of someone fleeing, Liam's every instinct screamed that they were being watched. Still, the evidence they'd retrieved was too valuable to leave behind. If Clarkson and his associates realized the infiltration, they might torch the place or send thugs to ambush them on the way out. Liam's men formed a protective circle around him as they hastened down the dimly lit street to their SUVs. The hush of the industrial district pressed in, broken only by the quiet rumble of distant machinery and the slosh of tires through puddles. Once they were safely inside the vehicles, Jensen radioed the all-clear. "No tails, sir," he said, "but we should move quickly." "Agreed," Liam answered, glancing at the bag of shredded papers resting on the seat beside him. "We can't risk staying in one place for too long." Their two-vehicle convoy slipped into the main thoroughfares of the city, heading toward a secure facility Liam had leased for Sterling Enterprises, a discreet building used for sensitive business negotiations and top-secret product research. It was also the perfect place to store evidence away from prying eyes. Inside the lead SUV, Liam stared at the half-shredded pages, mind spinning. Each snippet contained references to Stonehaven, coded transactions, or partial dates that matched up with events he remembered from his childhood. He thought of Margaret lying in that hospital bed, fighting for her life because she'd tried to pierce the same veil of lies. He thought of his parents, how they must have felt in their final moments if they realized they'd been betrayed. By the time they reached the secure facility, an unmarked warehouse on the outskirts of the city's business district, morning traffic had begun to thicken. Liam walked inside with brisk determination, ignoring the slight ache in his muscles from the tension of the night's mission. At his side, Jensen and two of the other guards carried the bins of documents. A hush fell over the group as they entered a brightly lit workspace with steel tables and high-tech scanning equipment. One of Liam's trusted IT specialists, a young man named Royce, was already waiting with coffee cups and a faint look of excitement. "You've got a major haul here, boss," Royce remarked, eyes flicking to the bins. "I set up the scanners and software. We can reconstruct shredded documents if we have enough pieces. It might take some time, but we'll do our best." "Every second counts," Liam replied. "Get started right away. I'll be here to help interpret anything we find. We need tangible proof to link Stonehaven, Finch, and Rochford, and to identify this Clarkson." Royce nodded eagerly. "Let's do it." While Royce and an assistant carefully fed scraps into specialized scanning machines, Liam paced the perimeter of the room, phone in hand. He needed to update Sophie. Earlier that morning he'd left her a message saying he might be offline during the operation so she wouldn't worry. Now, with the mission completed, he tapped her number. It rang twice before a tired yet relieved voice answered. "Liam, are you okay?" "Yes," he said, exhaling. "We found a cache of documents, enough to take these people down if we can piece them back together. I'm at the secure facility. Any updates on your end?" Sophie's tone shifted, reflecting her professional calm. "Margaret is awake, better than yesterday. Heart rate more stable, however, she's asking for you. She wants to know if you've discovered anything about Finch, Rochford, or Stonehaven. She keeps repeating that name, Stonehaven, and something about forged signatures. It's like she's remembering details in bits and pieces." Liam felt a spark of urgency. "We might have exactly what she's looking for. I just need time to reassemble these documents. I'll come by the hospital as soon as I can." A brief pause. Then Sophie spoke softly. "All right. Don't push yourself too hard. We both know you're juggling a lot. And thank you, Liam, for not giving up." His chest tightened at the warmth in her voice. "Thank you for everything. I'll see you soon." He ended the call and turned to find Royce gesturing him over. On a large monitor, lines of text scrolled past as the software tried to match paper fragments. Bits of financial records appeared, then an email address partially spelled out. "Look here," Royce said, pointing. "We have something referencing a scheduled meeting with C. Clarkson last week. The location is coded, but it might correspond to that building you just visited. And there's a mention of a big push in the next 48 hours. Some kind of final move or operation they're planning." Liam leaned in, reading the jumbled sentences. A final move. Could that be further sabotage? Another hit on Margaret? Royce shrugged. "It's unclear, but that might be it. Or maybe it's something to do with money laundering. Let me keep parsing the data." His phone vibrated again, this time a text from Irene. She'd been working at Sterling Tower, combing through corporate finances. The message read, "Need you to see this. Urgent. Possibly related to Hong Kong merger." Another wave of tension rippled through him. The Hong Kong deal was too big to be a mere business expansion, especially if Finch and Rochford had some link to overseas shell companies. Could they be interfering with the merger to sabotage Sterling Enterprises from within? He typed a quick reply, "I'll come soon." Turning to Jensen, he laid out the next steps. "Keep scanning everything. Forward me any major breakthroughs. I have to head to the tower to check on a possible infiltration in our corporate deals." Jensen nodded. "Understood, sir. We'll lock this place down until you return." Less than an hour later, Liam stepped off the private elevator into Sterling Tower's executive floor. Irene waited by his office door, clutched documents in her arms. Her face was drawn with worry. She motioned him inside, ignoring the usual pleasantries. "I found anomalies in the Hong Kong merger contracts," Irene said the moment they were alone. "Sections that appear to have been altered after you signed off. They funnel extra funds into a subsidiary that doesn't exist in our official records." Liam's jaw clenched. So the board or someone close to them might be compromised. This subsidiary, could it be one of Stonehaven's fronts? Irene nodded. That's my guess. I cross-referenced the bank details and recognized certain patterns. Accounts with cryptic codes, similar to what we saw in your parents' old dealings. If this had gone through, it would have siphoned millions from Sterling Enterprises, leaving the blame on us. The meltdown would be catastrophic. Cold anger seethed within him, which means Stonehaven hoped to sabotage the company from within, using the Hong Kong deal as cover, and they might have inside help. I need the name of whoever was assigned to finalize these documents. She shifted uncomfortably, flipping pages in a folder. The primary signatory is Colton Thorne, but it's not conclusive. The changes might have been inserted by one of his subordinates, or someone forging his signature. Liam's pulse pounded. Thorne was a long-standing board member who always advocated for expansion. Could he be compromised, or was he being set up? "We need proof before we confront him," he said. A knock at the office door made them jump. Jensen stepped in, expression tense. "Sir, we got new intel from Royce. The shredded docs mentioned something about an opportunity tomorrow evening. Some type of event. Could be a sabotage, an attempt on someone's life, or a major money move. Hard to say." Liam raked a hand through his hair. "Margaret's condition is still precarious. She's in the hospital. If Stonehaven wants her gone, they might try again soon." He glanced at Irene. "Keep going through the merger files. If you find direct links to Thorne or anyone else, you let me know immediately." "Of course," Irene said grimly. He returned to the hospital before lunchtime, anxious about Margaret's state. The tension coiling in him was nearly unbearable. Between Stonehaven's potential final move, the compromised merger, and the uncertain loyalty of his own board members, Liam felt like a general on a battlefield with threats pressing on all sides. Sophie met him in the corridor, her eyes immediately scanning his face. "You look exhausted." "Comes with the territory," he managed, though his tone was bleak. "How's she doing?" "Stable. She's awake. Came off sedation for a while. Wants to speak to you." He followed her into the room. Margaret lay there, frail but alert, her gaze sharpening when she saw him. "Liam," she murmured, "you've discovered something, haven't you?" He approached the bed, pulling a chair close. "Yes. We found a stash of Stonehaven's records. Enough to expose them, I think. But it's dangerous. They're planning something." Margaret's eyes flickered with both relief and alarm. "I remember now," she said, voice trembling. "They wanted to seize Sterling Enterprises, or at least sabotage it through hidden deals like they almost did to your father's holdings. That's how they keep families under their control. If the family resists, they're eliminated." Sophie touched Margaret's wrist gently, mindful of the IV line. "You must not stress yourself, Mrs. Sterling. Let Liam handle it." Margaret's lips quirked in a wry smile. "You think I can lie here idle while Stonehaven tears my life apart? Ridiculous. I have documents, locked in a safe at the estate. Original papers your father left with me, Liam, though incomplete. They might align with what you've found." He inhaled sharply. "Then we need them. But first, you need to recover. I'll send someone I trust to retrieve them. Where's the key?" "Inside an old leather-bound book, The Count of Monte Cristo, on my bookshelf at the estate," Margaret answered. "Open it. You'll find the key hidden behind the front cover." Liam nodded, a swirl of emotions surging in him. "I'll do it right away." Sophie stepped forward. "After you do, let me know if we need to call in more guards. With the estate unoccupied, it's vulnerable." Margaret closed her eyes, exhaustion returning. "Be swift, Liam. Stonehaven is cunning, and I fear time grows short." He kissed her forehead gently, heart pounding. "Rest. I'll handle everything." As he left, Sophie lingered to adjust Margaret's blankets. Liam paused at the doorway, watching them. A surge of protectiveness overwhelmed him, not just for Margaret, but for Sophie, and the baby she carried. His gaze lingered on the woman who had quietly become a pillar in his life, bonded by crisis, yet fortified by shared purpose. Taking one final look at the monitors that tracked his grandmother's fragile heartbeat, He steeled himself. The final confrontation with Stonehaven, Finch, Rochford, and whoever Clarkson was, it approached with each passing moment. If they dared to strike again, he would be ready. Because now Liam understood the truth, protecting his family, ensuring justice, and building a future for the child he never expected. That was the fight he was destined to wage. He left with renewed resolve, phoning Jensen to arrange an immediate trip to the Sterling estate. If Stonehaven had planted eyes there, or if Thorne or any other traitor tried to reach the documents first, they'd fail. Liam Sterling was done being a step behind. He intended to turn the tides, even if it meant confronting the darkest corners of his past head-on. The drive out to the Sterling estate took Liam through winding country roads that gradually gave way to rolling lawns and tall wrought-iron gates. Once a sanctuary for family gatherings and lavish charity events, the estate now loomed in the early evening light like a relic of a bygone era. The mansion's pale stone facade reflected the glow of the sinking sun, and thick hedges bordered the driveway. Jensen followed in a separate SUV, leading 2 additional guards who remained alert. Despite the scenic approach, Liam felt no peace. Margaret's warning about Stonehaven's cunning played on repeat in his mind. If the enemy suspected these documents existed, the estate could be a target. The gates parted and Liam drove through, his pulse quickening. He remembered carefree childhood days here, racing his toy cars along the marble floors, chasing imaginary monsters with a wooden sword. Now real monsters lurked beyond the gates, orchestrating sabotage against his grandmother and his future child. He parked near the massive front doors. The entrance looked almost deserted, as the household staff had been minimized once Margaret fell ill and he'd moved into his penthouse in the city. The caretaker, a woman named Alma, had been told to maintain minimal presence and strict security. Liam stepped out of the car, scanning the windows. The estate seemed eerily silent. Jensen approached with a nod. "We'll do a quick perimeter check and station men near the back. Sir, keep your phone on you at all times. If something's off, we're seconds away." "Thank you," Liam replied, voice subdued. "I'll head straight to the library." His footsteps echoed in the grand foyer, the air tinged with the faint scent of polish and memories. He bypassed the drawing room, where he could almost picture Margaret hosting philanthropic teas, and made for the spiral staircase leading to the second-floor library. Dust motes danced in the last rays of sunlight that filtered through tall windows. At the top of the stairs, a spacious corridor led to heavy double doors, the entrance to the library. Liam paused, pressing a palm to one door. This room had once been his father's refuge, then Margaret's after his parents' passing. He'd spent hours here as a child, curled up in a corner reading detective novels, never dreaming that one day he'd be living inside a real conspiracy. Pushing the door open, he stepped into the library's hush. Floor-to-ceiling shelves lined the walls, books of every genre meticulously arranged. A large mahogany desk anchored the space near a window. Thick curtains were partly drawn, letting a narrow band of evening light stretch across the rug. He inhaled the familiar aroma of aged paper and leather bindings, comforting but overshadowed by present danger. Margaret's instructions echoed in his mind. "The key is hidden in the Count of Monte Cristo." As he moved to a far wall, he flicked on a brass lamp. His gaze scanned the spines until he located that particular volume, near an old globe stand. Carefully, he pulled out the leather-bound copy and opened it. Sure enough, inside the front cover, taped beneath the binding, was a small, ornate key. Relief stirred in him. He peeled the key free and turned toward the nearest bookshelf. Margaret had mentioned a safe. He recalled a conversation from years ago about how she'd hidden it in the library walls, accessible only through a disguised panel. He ran his fingers along the wooden backing, searching for a seam. After a moment, something clicked under the pressure of his hand, and a small portion of the panel swung inward to reveal a steel safe. He knelt, heart pounding. This was it. The spot where Margaret had likely kept the final remnants of his father's evidence. With shaking hands, he inserted the key. At first, it wouldn't turn. Adjusting his angle, he tried again, and the mechanism clicked. The safe door creaked open, releasing a faint, musty smell. Inside lay a single folder, thick with documents, and a small velvet pouch. Liam grabbed the folder, flipping it open. Dozens of pages, typed and handwritten, revealed partial records of financial transactions, meeting notes referencing Stonehaven, and cryptic margin notes from his father. Some lines had been underlined in red. A wave of sorrow hit him. His father's handwriting carefully documenting the tangled web that eventually cost him his life. Sifting through the pages, he realized these notes dovetailed with the shredded documents recovered from the abandoned office. Cross-references to Finch and Rochford jumped out, along with dates suspiciously close to the day of his parents' crash. Heart-pounding, Liam set the folder aside and reached for the velvet pouch. Inside, nestled in soft cloth, was a small keychain and a USB drive. The keychain had an old photograph embedded in a plastic sleeve. His father, mother, and a younger version of Liam beaming on the front steps of the estate. He swallowed hard, memories rushing back. With trembling fingers, he placed the keychain on the desk, then examined the USB drive. No label, possibly containing digital evidence his father had compiled. If so, it could be the final piece to confirm everything. Margaret must have kept it hidden all these years, waiting for the right moment. He set the items on the desk, pulling out his phone to call Irene. But before he could dial, the library door behind him creaked. He whirled around. A man stood in the doorway, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing dark clothes. The intrusion was so silent that Liam's security detail must not have noticed, or perhaps the intruder had found a way around them. Liam's pulse skyrocketed. Instinctively, he moved to shield the documents with his body. "Who are you?" he demanded, trying to keep his voice steady. The stranger took a slow step forward, expression taut. "Put those files back in the safe, Mr. Sterling. Now." A faint accent tinged his words. British, perhaps. He held no visible weapon, but menace rolled off him in waves. Liam's gaze flicked to the desk, then to the door. He needed to stall, maybe signal Jensen. Instead, the man flicked a switch on a small device in his hand, a signal jammer most likely, which would block any calls or texts. "Your phone won't help you," he said calmly. "I'm only asking once. Put everything back." Clenching his jaw, Liam refused to comply. "You're Clarkson, aren't you?" he said, guessing. "The Stonehaven operative." A half-smile tugged at the man's lips. "You're more resourceful than your father was. Pity." His words confirmed the guess. Liam's fists clenched. If Clarkson was here, it meant Stonehaven was even more desperate to quash these files. "You came all this way, sneaking past my security, to destroy evidence that ties you to my parents' murder. Not happening." Clarkson stepped closer. "It's not personal. Your family stuck its nose into matters best left alone. We offered leniency once upon a time. Your father refused, and now Margaret refuses. This ends tonight, before you drag the entire Sterling name into the mud." A flash of anger burned in Liam's chest. "You talk about mud, but you're the one sinking in corruption. My father was innocent. He was trying to protect what was rightfully his. You murdered him." Clarkson's gaze grew flinty. "He forced our hand. Now kindly step away from that desk." Liam's mind raced. He needed to keep Clarkson talking, buy time for the security detail to realize the infiltration. He inched sideways, placing himself near the desk's corner. "What if I told you we already scanned half your shredded documents? That we have copies on multiple drives?" Clarkson's smirk faltered slightly. "Then we'll find them all. Destroy them. No evidence, no case. Sterling Enterprises can still stand if you capitulate, or you can watch it burn as we take you down. Is that your big plan? Another sabotage attempt like forging the Hong Kong merger documents?" Liam asked, stalling. "You'll fail," Clarkson scoffed, closing the distance. "We never fail. Look at your grandmother. clinging to life after a series of unfortunate medical issues. That was a courtesy, a slow exit. We wanted to avoid suspicion. The next time, we won't be so patient. Rage flooded Liam's veins. If Clarkson had attacked Margaret, he could easily do worse to Sophie, to the unborn child. Enough was enough. With a sudden surge, Liam lunged for a brass bookend on the desk, swinging it in a wide arc. Clarkson dodged with surprising agility, the bookend smashing against the library wall instead. He struck back, landing a solid blow on Liam's side. Pain flared, but adrenaline propelled Liam forward. He grabbed Clarkson's arm, grappling for control. They stumbled against the desk, the documents scattering to the floor. Clarkson wrenched free, delivering a punch that caught Liam's jaw. Stars exploded in Liam's vision, but he refused to let the folder fall back into the safe. He dove at Clarkson again, sending them both crashing into a bookshelf. Hardcovers rained down, the lamp on the desk toppling with a crash. "Jensen!" Liam shouted, hoping his voice carried beyond the library, beyond the jammer's radius. Clarkson grabbed a heavy encyclopedia and swung. Liam ducked in time, hooking an arm around Clarkson's midsection and slamming him into the shelf. Clarkson hissed, twisting out of Liam's grip, a cunning glint in his eyes. Then, unexpectedly, Clarkson produced a small blade from his belt. Its metallic gleam shot a stab of alarm through Liam. Clarkson slashed once, forcing Liam backward. A second slash, narrowly missing Liam's chest. He tried to grab Clarkson's wrist, but the assailant shifted with lethal grace. "Your father was braver than you," Clarkson taunted, voice seething with contempt. "At least he died with dignity, you're just flailing." Liam felt a wave of white-hot fury. "Shut up!" he roared, surging forward. If only he had a weapon. The brass bookend lay somewhere on the floor, out of reach. He needed to disarm Clarkson. Clarkson aimed another stab, but Liam sidestepped, seizing the intruder's forearm and wrenching it sideways. With a desperate grunt, he forced Clarkson's arm upward, slamming it against a shelf. The knife clattered to the floor. A beam of light flashed from the corridor. Suddenly, Jensen and two guards burst in, guns drawn. "Drop it!" Jensen bellowed, even though Clarkson's blade was already gone. Clarkson, eyes wild, realized he was outnumbered. With a snarl, he drove a hard kick into Liam's ribs, breaking free. He lunged for the side exit door in the library. The guards fired warning shots, but Clarkson ducked behind the frame, disappearing into the corridor beyond. Jensen and the others sprinted after him. Liam staggered, pain radiating through his ribcage. He gripped the edge of the desk to steady himself, fighting to stay upright. In the distance, he heard another door slam and the sound of rushed footsteps. Seconds later, an engine roared outside, likely Clarkson's vehicle, escaping into the dusk. Breathing raggedly, Liam glanced around at the wrecked library. The safe stood ajar, papers scattered, but the folder, thankfully, remained, albeit trampled in the fight. The USB drive, too, was on the floor near the desk. Clarkson hadn't succeeded in taking them. Jensen reappeared, frustration etched on his features. "He got away, sir. Slipped out a side entrance, probably cut the alarm or jammed it. We'll search the grounds, but he's likely gone." Clutching his side, Liam grimaced. "He's not gone for good. We have the documents. That's enough to bury them once we assemble everything." Jensen helped him sit in a nearby chair, eyes scanning Liam's injuries. "We need to check you out, sir. You're bleeding from a cut on your face." Wiping his brow, Liam found blood on his hand. The sting on his temple suggested a small laceration. "I'll live. Right now, we secure these files." Clarkson was inches away from destroying them. Jensen signaled for one of the guards to collect the scattered pages. "Yes, sir." As the guard gathered everything, Liam's breath slowed, the adrenaline ebbing to reveal deeper pain in his ribs. Still, he felt a twisted sense of triumph. Clarkson had failed to reclaim the evidence. Now there was no turning back. Stonehaven had revealed its hand, and Liam refused to cower. He glanced at the torn library, books scattered, the safe's door bent out of shape. A place of cherished memories had momentarily become a battleground. Despite the chaos, a glimmer of hope emerged. They had proof. And Margaret's life, while still in danger, was not yet lost. Liam pressed a palm against the USB drive, feeling its cold edges against his skin. "Let them come," he muttered under his breath. "We're ready now." He just prayed that Sophie and Margaret would remain safe until he could end this war once and for all. Dusk settled into night by the time Liam made it back into the city. The aftershock of his confrontation with Clarkson still burned through his veins, anger at the threat to his family, and a fierce resolve born of survival. Jensen insisted on driving, giving Liam a chance to cradle his bruised ribs. In the back seat of the SUV, he periodically dabbed at the cut near his temple. The bleeding had stopped, but a throbbing ache reminded him of the close call in the Sterling Library. In another vehicle trailing behind, one of the guards held the newly retrieved folder and USB drive. Liam refused to let them out of his sight for long, but for now, exhaustion pinched at every corner of his awareness. He knew Sophie would worry if she saw him battered. He also knew Margaret's condition remained precarious, and yet he had to press forward, because time was running out for them all. They arrived at Sterling Tower first. Liam wanted to hand off the documents to Royce for immediate digitization. Outside the sleek skyscraper, a handful of employees worked late, their windows illuminated in the upper floors. A hush lay over the lobby, punctuated by the echo of footsteps on polished marble. Irene stood by the elevator, phone pressed to her ear. She hurried over the moment she saw Liam, her eyes widening at the streak of dried blood on his face. "Are you all right? What happened?" "Clarkson happened," he replied grimly. "He broke into the estate, tried to destroy the evidence we found. We fought. He got away, but I held on to the files." Irene's breath caught. "That means Stonehaven is on to us, or at least aware we're close to the truth. We should expect them to escalate. Are you sure you're okay?" "Just bruises," Liam managed, pressing a hand to his sore ribs. "Is Royce still here?" "Yes, up in the data lab," Irene said, swiftly guiding him to a private elevator. "He's scanning the Hong Kong documents and comparing them with what we found in that abandoned office. He might as well add these new files to the queue." They ascended to the top floors, stepping out into a corridor leading to a secured room Sterling Enterprises normally used for confidential R&D. In the lab's hushed interior, banks of computers hummed under fluorescent lights. Royce hunched over a workstation, eyes flickering between multiple screens. "Boss?" he greeted, standing up quickly when he noticed Liam's disheveled appearance. "You look rough. Did you—" Liam waved a hand. "Long story. Here's more evidence." He gestured for the guard to place the battered folder on the table. Gently, he withdrew the USB drive from his jacket pocket, handing it to Royce. "This might hold digital proof my father collected. Let's see if we can access it." Royce nodded, grabbing a USB extension cable. "I'll clone the drive first in case it's booby-trapped or encrypted. Then we can attempt a read-only approach." Irene hovered anxiously. "I'll help you cross-reference any new data with the suspected infiltration in the Hong Kong merger. Did you see that last note I sent you about a board-level meeting called for tomorrow?" "What board-level meeting?" Liam asked, frowning. She flicked to a text on her phone. "Colton Thorne convened an urgent session. He claims it's to finalize the Hong Kong deal, but the timing is suspicious. The meeting is set for tomorrow at noon." Liam's brows knitted. Thorne's involvement in the forcibly altered contracts could be a sign he was compromised, or perhaps he was being manipulated himself. Either way, it aligned too closely with the mention of Stonehaven's final move. "Fine. We'll attend that meeting fully armed with evidence if we have it in time. If Thorne is complicit, we'll catch him off guard." One of Liam's guards approached, tapping his earpiece. "Sir, the local police want a statement about the break-in at your estate. Should we arrange a formal interview?" He hesitated. If the police got too involved before the final puzzle pieces lined up, Stonehaven's plants within the system could tip Clarkson off. "Not yet," he said carefully. Tell them a minor security breach occurred. No serious injuries. Nothing stolen. I'll file a formal statement soon. Right now, our focus is here." The guard nodded, stepping aside to make the call. Meanwhile, Royce finished the cloning process on the USB. "Drive's not encrypted. That's interesting. Seems old, though. The last modified date is from about 15 years ago, which would be around 2 years after my parents' death," Liam said, heart beating faster. "Open it." A hush fell over the room as Royce double-clicked a file directory. Photos, documents, scanned letters, each labeled in a shorthand referencing Stonehaven. One folder read, "Accident Correspondence," and Liam's stomach twisted painfully. Could these be the messages that proved once and for all his parents' crash was orchestrated? Royce opened a text file. The words on the screen seemed to jump out. From the desk of R. Sterling, "They threatened me in case I moved against them. Stonehaven's agents, Finch, Rochford, and an unknown figure, plan to sabotage finances if I do not comply, meeting them to deliver final refusal. If something happens, Margaret must see these records." R. Sterling, my father, Liam breathed, voice trembling. A wave of sorrow rose in him. This was essentially his father's last testament, typed out in desperation. He read on. "They forced me to sign partial deals to mask money laundering. I suspect they'll escalate. If I do not return from this meeting, my love to Margaret and Liam. Perhaps one day he'll understand I did everything to protect him." Emotion clogged Liam's throat, tears prickling behind his eyes. He'd suspected for years that his father had been cornered by powerful enemies, but reading the words in real time hammered the truth home. The sabotage in the Hong Kong deal was simply history repeating itself, a method Stonehaven had perfected. Finch, Rochford, and whoever else lurked behind them had threatened entire families, forcing them into corrupt deals under penalty of deadly consequences. "Look," Irene whispered, pointing at another file titled Stonehaven Structure.pdf. Royce clicked it, revealing an organizational chart with shadows and dotted lines, an attempt by R. Sterling to map out the network. At the top, 3 names were scrawled: Finch, Rochford, and a question mark. Below them, dozens of shell companies scattered across multiple countries. Royce scrolled further, revealing an empty line at the bottom with a single note from R. Sterling. "Higher authority, or is it unknown? They answer to someone even more powerful." Liam's blood ran cold. So Finch and Rochford might not be the top. They themselves could be taking orders from a bigger fish. Clarkson told me in the library that my father forced their hand. Maybe there's a hidden sponsor orchestrating everything from behind the scenes. Or it's possible Finch and Rochford used a proxy identity to mislead your father, Irene offered quietly. But either way, it proves your father had reason to fear them. Numbness crawled through Liam, so many unanswered questions. Yet the core truth was clear. Stonehaven was responsible for his parents' murder, and they were now trying to devour Sterling Enterprises from the inside. If Liam didn't stand firm, Margaret would be next. Sophie, too, if they decided she was a threat. He set his jaw. "We have enough to blow Stonehaven wide open. I'll confront the board tomorrow. If Thorne is compromised, we'll expose him. If not, he can help us move publicly against Stonehaven. Either way, we're not backing down." Royce nodded. "Shall I keep scanning? There may be more links, maybe explicit references to Clarkson or the meltdown they're planning." "Do it," Liam commanded. "I want every detail ready by morning." A beep from Liam's phone interrupted. He glanced at the screen. Sophie's number, but it was a text, not a call. "Sophie, Margaret's stable but anxious. She keeps saying, 'Tomorrow's the day. Must stop them. Please come soon.' Margaret senses the showdown is near," Liam muttered, pocketing his phone. He faced Irene and Royce. "I'm heading to the hospital. Keep me updated in real time. Don't open the lines to anyone outside our inner circle. Stonehaven undoubtedly has moles. We can't let them intercept any communications." They both agreed, and he trudged to the elevator. Jensen joined him, silent solidarity reflected in his guarded expression. As the doors slid closed, Liam closed his eyes, letting the hum of machinery fill his thoughts. Tomorrow. Everything pointed to tomorrow. Stonehaven's final move, the urgent board meeting, Margaret's mounting fear. He pictured Sophie's calm face, her unwavering support, and behind that, the faintest hint of a new life growing inside her. No matter how dark things got, he would protect them. Protecting his family was more than an obligation. It was the singular promise that gave him strength. Night had fully enveloped the city when Liam returned to Sterling City Hospital. The corridors were quieter than usual, the overhead lights dimmed. One of his security guards gave a nod, stepping aside to reveal Sophie waiting near Margaret's door. She immediately noticed the bruise on Liam's jaw and the bandage across his temple. "You're hurt," she said, concern lacing her voice. "Sit down. Let me look at that cut." He followed her into a small, empty room nearby, where she fetched a first aid kit. Gently, she dabbed antiseptic on his temple, her brow knitted in worry. "What happened?" He inhaled, summarizing the estate confrontation. Each word made her expression grow more alarmed. "Clarkson cornered me in the library. We fought. He escaped. But I have the evidence. That's what matters now." She pressed a fresh gauze pad to the wound, gentle fingers smoothing it in place. "Liam, you can't keep risking your life like this. If they've already tried to kill Margaret, they won't hesitate to come after you, or me." "I know," he murmured, cupping her hand. "But I can't stand by while these murderers roam free. Tomorrow's crucial. Stonehaven plans something big, and I have to stop them. Let me worry about my own safety. I just need you to keep Margaret alive and stay vigilant." A shadow of fear crossed her eyes, but she nodded. "I'm with you no matter what. She's your grandmother, and I—" Sophie paused, swallowing. "And we're family too. This baby deserves a future free of threats." Emotion tightened his throat. He gazed into her steady eyes, acknowledging the unspoken vow that bound them. "Yes," he whispered finally. "Together we'll end this." Sophie helped him to his feet and guided him back toward Margaret's room. The old matriarch was half sitting up, monitors beeping in steady intervals. She managed a tired smile at Liam's approach, her gaze flicking to his bandages. "You've been fighting, haven't you, dear boy?" she said, voice soft yet firm with reproach. "Are you hurt badly?" "It's just a scratch." He eased into the chair by her bed. "But you were right about everything. We found more evidence, including digital files from my father's stash. It's damning, Gran. We're closing in." Margaret exhaled a shuddery breath. "Good. Because I fear tomorrow's storm can't be stopped otherwise." She reached out, clasping Liam's hand in a surprisingly strong grip. "Finish what your father started. Don't let them ruin more families." Sophie stood at the foot of the bed, arms folded protectively. Liam squeezed Margaret's hand. "I won't. I promise." The night wore on, the hush of the ward deepening. Outside, the city lights sparkled in the blackness, but for Liam, the glow felt like a countdown timer. Everything converged at once: the clandestine board meeting, Stonehaven's rumored final move, the heartbreak of his parents' murder. Yet in Margaret's unwavering gaze and Sophie's quiet devotion, he found the courage to press forward. As midnight approached, a fleeting thought danced through his tired mind. If he survived tomorrow, maybe, just maybe, he could carve a path to peace. Peace for Margaret, for Sophie, and for the tiny life waiting to be born into a world that Liam vowed to make safer. That hope, fragile but determined, was enough to light his way through the darkness. The next morning arrived in a rush of adrenaline and last-minute preparations. Liam woke in Margaret's hospital room, having spent the remaining hours on a spare cot while Sophie dozed fitfully in a nearby chair. Dawn light seeped through the blinds, revealing the worry on everyone's faces. Even the hospital staff seemed attuned to the tense undercurrent, stepping carefully around the private security guards now stationed at every turn. Margaret stirred, opening her eyes with a clarity that startled Liam. Despite her weakened state, she gestured for him to come closer. "Today's the day," she whispered, voice raspy but resolute. "All the threads converge. Don't let them slip away this time." He bent to kiss her forehead. "I won't. We have the proof. We just need to confront the board, flush out anyone in league with Stonehaven, and expose the sabotage. Irene and Royce are working to compile everything into a bulletproof presentation." She placed a trembling hand over his. "Be safe, Liam. Remember that your father was killed not only by criminals, but by the system that allowed those criminals to hide in plain sight. Stay one step ahead." He nodded, swallowing the knot in his throat. "Sophie will be here with you, okay? I'll keep a guard detail posted as well." Margaret exhaled with relief. "Thank you." Then her gaze flicked to Sophie, who stood close by, listening. "Look after him," Margaret said to her. "He's brave, but sometimes too much so." Sophie offered a small smile, eyes brimming with quiet determination. "I will." The board meeting was set for noon in one of Sterling Enterprises' executive conference rooms. The sky outside was ominously overcast, matching the gravity of what Liam was about to do. With Jensen and 2 guards at his side, he strode through the polished corridors of Sterling Tower, ignoring curious glances from employees. His bruised ribs ached, and the bandage on his temple caused more than a few double takes, but he kept his chin high. At the door to the conference room, Irene stood waiting with documents and a laptop. She looked tense. "I've loaded all files onto a secure drive. Your father's records, the Stonehaven charts, the hidden mergers. Royce is on standby if we need remote tech support." Liam squeezed her shoulder gratefully. "Thank you. Let's do this." They entered to find the board already assembled around a gleaming oval table, their faces reflecting a mix of concern and curiosity. At the head sat Colton Thorne, who rose from his chair. "Liam," he began, eyeing the bandage on his temple. "Are you quite all right? You look as though you've been in a brawl." "You could say that," Liam replied, voice steady. "Let's skip formalities. I believe you called this meeting to finalize the Hong Kong merger, but I suspect there's more to discuss." Thorne's expression hardened slightly. "Fine. Everyone is here. Share your thoughts." Liam gestured for Irene to distribute copies of a short summary. In the past weeks, Sterling Enterprises has been targeted by a criminal network known as Stonehaven. They've used shell companies to siphon funds under the guise of legitimate deals, including the Hong Kong merger. Their ultimate goal is to gain leverage over our family, just as they once did with my father, to fatal effect. A ripple of shock passed around the table. Some board members exchanged worried looks, others leaned forward, lips pressed tight. One older gentleman cleared his throat. "Liam, these are serious allegations. Do you have proof?" "Yes," Liam said. "I have documents from my father's secret files and from a Stonehaven hideout we recently infiltrated. The data shows attempts to divert corporate funds to false subsidiaries. And I discovered changes to the Hong Kong contract, changes that would have bled us dry." He took a measured breath, then locked eyes with Thorne. "Colton, your name appears on these documents. Either you're a victim of forgery, or you signed them knowing what they contained. Which is it?" Thorne went rigid, color draining from his face. I never sanctioned any hidden clauses. My signature must have been forged, or I was deceived by subordinates. I've served the Sterling family for decades. Why would I turn against them now?" Liam scanned Thorne's expression for sincerity. He detected alarm, but not necessarily guilt. Before he could press further, another board member stood up, voice shaking. "I can't believe this. Are you suggesting we've all been infiltrated? That any one of us could be complicit?" "That's exactly it," Liam said, projecting a firm calm. Stonehaven uses intimidation and bribery. Some might help them unwittingly. But let me be clear. I won't tolerate traitors. Today, we end their hold on Sterling Enterprises, assuming we stand united. A heavy silence gripped the room. Then Thorne straightened his shoulders. I'm with you, Liam. If I've been used, I want to set it right. Show us the full evidence. Irene connected her laptop to a screen, clicking through slides and documents that spelled out the depth of the conspiracy. Transaction records, emails referencing Stonehaven's front companies, partial confessions from ex-employees, gasps and exclamations followed each reveal. One board member slammed his fist on the table. "This is monstrous! We must alert the authorities immediately!" "Yes," Liam said, "and I intend to. But first we need every single Stonehaven link severed from our operations. We also must confirm no board member is a willing participant." His gaze swept the room. "If anyone here has something to confess, do it now or face serious legal consequences later." Murmurs rose. No one stood up. After a moment, Thorne cleared his throat. "Very well. It appears we're all on the same page. Let's sign a directive to fully cooperate with law enforcement, freezing the Hong Kong merger until we can purge these hidden deals." Liam nodded. Irene produced a draft statement for the board to review. They passed it around, scrawling signatures. Hope flickered in Liam's chest. Perhaps Thorne was innocent after all, or at least prepared to rectify his errors. But a part of him remained on guard. Stonehaven might have one last trick up their sleeve. No sooner had the final signature dried than a sharp sound echoed in the corridor. A high-pitched alarm? Liam stiffened, exchanging looks with Jensen. Something was happening outside. Suddenly, one of Liam's guards burst in, eyes wide. "Mr. Sterling, there's been an incident at the hospital." Liam's blood ran cold. "Sophie? Margaret?" The guard looked pained. "An electrical failure in the ICU. The backup generator is malfunctioning. They're scrambling to keep critical patients alive. It seems deliberate." Liam's heart slammed against his ribs. Stonehaven's final move, an attack on Margaret's ward. He spun to Irene. "Finish here. Call the police. I'm going to the hospital now." Thorne nodded, alarmed. "Go. We'll handle what's left and join you once we've contacted authorities." Without another word, Liam sprinted out, Jensen hot on his heels. Elevator doors opened as if on cue, whisking them down to the lobby in seconds. Liam's mind raced with images of Margaret's fragile condition, if the power cut caused her machines to fail. As soon as they cleared the building, Liam jumped into the SUV with Jensen, tires screeching onto the street. His phone buzzed, Sophie calling. He put it on speaker. "Sophie!" he barked. "What's happening?" Her voice came through in frantic bursts. "Massive power surge. Monitors and ventilators flickered off. We're on battery backups for the life support machines, but it's not stable. Margaret, she's still conscious, but her heart rate's spiking." Terror gripped him. "I'm 5 minutes away. Hang on. Security is there. Can they help?" Sophie's breath hitched. "Some kind of sabotage in the electrical room. They found tampered wiring. The hospital staff is doing everything they can, but it's chaos. Hurry, Liam." He ended the call, focusing on the road. Traffic lights blurred past, horns blaring as the SUV weaved between cars. The city seemed to move in slow motion around him. Each minute felt like an eternity. At last, they screeched to a halt outside Sterling City Hospital. Smoke billowed from a side entrance, staff and security rushing about. Alarms blared. Liam stormed in, ignoring the stench of burnt plastic. Fear for Margaret and for Sophie fueled his every step. Up on the ICU floor, emergency lights flickered. Doctors and nurses moved frantically from room to room, swapping out battery packs, administering manual ventilation where needed. Sophie spotted Liam and rushed over, relief warring with terror. "She's in there," she gasped, pointing to Margaret's room. "We nearly lost her heart rhythm, but I gave her emergency meds. The IV pumps are running on portable units now." "Thank you," he breathed, then bolted into Margaret's room. She lay pale and gasping under an oxygen mask, monitors running on a makeshift power source. Beads of sweat lined her forehead. Her eyes found Liam's. They nearly succeeded, she whispered, voice quaking. But not yet, my boy, not yet. He gathered her hand in both of his. You're safe now. We've exposed them. This is their last, desperate strike. She nodded weakly, but her body shuddered, the effort to speak clearly draining her. Sophie rushed in with a syringe. We're stabilizing her, but she needs full power soon. The battery packs won't last forever. As if on cue, a flicker of light coursed through the ceiling fixtures. Then, with a loud hum, the normal power returned. A cheer of relief rang through the corridor as medical equipment whirred back to life. Nurses hurried to confirm everything was stable. In Margaret's room, the monitors resumed their steady beep, oxygen flows normalizing. Sophie exhaled in gratitude. Margaret's eyes fluttered in exhaustion, but she managed a faint smile at Liam. I always said, I'm too stubborn to go quietly. Emotion overcame him, tears prickling. He leaned close, brushing a kiss to her temple. Thank God, Gran. A new commotion echoed from the hallway. Jensen's voice filtered in. We've apprehended an intruder in the electrical room. He was carrying sabotage tools, possibly Stonehaven's operative. At that announcement, Margaret's entire body relaxed for a moment, as if the tension holding her upright finally released. Sophie checked her vitals, confirming she was stable enough to rest. Liam stayed by her side, heart pounding. Outside, more security personnel arrived, along with local authorities. In the coming hours, Liam knew they'd piece together the infiltration attempt, the sabotage of the hospital's electrical systems. But Stonehaven had failed. Margaret lived, the files were safe, and the board stood united behind Liam, ready to crush Stonehaven's hold. When Margaret finally drifted into a peaceful sleep, Sophie tugged Liam aside. She placed a hand on her abdomen, the subtle sign of the life they carried forward. Tears glimmered in her eyes. We did it. She's alive, Liam. He cupped Sophie's cheek, heart near bursting with relief. Yes, we did. And Stonehaven's days are numbered. We'll hand over the evidence to the authorities. Finch, Rochford, Clarkson, everyone involved will face justice. Sophie nodded, slipping into his arms. He held her close, every exhale a testament to the danger they'd narrowly escaped. Over her shoulder he spotted the quiet form of Margaret in the bed, monitors calmly ticking. The war wasn't fully finished, arrests and trials would follow, but the greatest hurdle was cleared. In that hushed moment of reprieve, with the hospital's lights shining steadily once more, Liam allowed himself to envision a future unshadowed by threats. A future where Margaret recovered to guide him in her unyielding way. Where Sophie stood by his side not just as a collaborator in crisis, but as a partner in life. Where their child would be born into a safer world, free from the ghosts of Stonehaven. He pressed his lips to Sophie's hair. We're free now, he whispered, voice catching. Almost, she murmured, tightening her hold on him. But with each step, we're taking back what they stole. They remained locked in that embrace, bound together by hardship, yet illuminated by hope. Tomorrow, arrests would be made. The board would publicly condemn Stonehaven. Newspapers would run headlines exposing the shocking corruption that had haunted the Sterling family for decades. And eventually, amid all the dust settling, Margaret would finally return home, welcomed by a grandson whose vow to protect her and his new family had become unbreakable. Outside, the first rays of a fresh dawn glimmered through the hospital windows, signaling not just another day, but a long-awaited turning point in their lives. If you enjoyed this story, don't miss the next one. Just click on the screen.